Hello everyone, my name is Adam Michael Anthony Simpson and you're watching my YouTube channel, Adam M.A. Simpson. Today I'll be interviewing Imari Walker, a PhD candidate at Duke University in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. I'm so excited to have this episode because Imari is one of my inspirations, mentors, and advocates as a science communicator. Her story demonstrates an African American scientist engaging all of her interests, from being an artist as a graphic designer to being an expert voice on the harmful effects of microplastics and their additives being leached into our water and environment. I hope to inspire young, aspiring scientists to follow in her footsteps to be an academic and a science communicator. Awesome. So let's begin.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So everybody that's watching this video, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Imari Walker, who is a PhD candidate at Duke, and I'll allow her to introduce herself. Do you want to say something, Imari?
Yeah. So my name is Imari. I'm actually in my 5th year at Duke University studying chemicals that are associated to plastic and how, and not only that they're associated to plastic, but how they leave and end up in things like our freshwater environments, or when you throw that plastic bottle away, they end up in the landfill. Well, if there's rain and heat happening, there's also leachate that's flowing out of the landfills to freshwater environments and later to our oceans. So a lot of what I do is just chemical analysis and trying to understand what chemicals are being released and whether they're toxic or not. And then I also, like Adam, have a YouTube channel geared towards talking about these kinds of issues of chemicals associated to not just plastic, but the products that we use every day, like our body wash or things like deodorant. So yeah, that's what I do.
That's awesome. And I'd like to give a little bit of background about how we know each other. So we actually met at Visit Day. I remember meeting you and I was just like, I just saw myself in you, and that like we were one of very few Black people, or we're the only 2 Black people in the whole
I think we were
visit.
the only 2 Black people.
Yes,
yeah, at Stanford's visitation.
Yeah, so I just went up to you and I was just like, hi!
It was great. It was epic. I think
Yes.
I had just run from a midterm to from Berkeley to Stanford to like do like half of the visit day.
Wow.
It was so great to see you there at least.
Yes, and then we didn't keep in touch after that, but then we went to the Gordon conference at Holderness, the Holderness School.
Yeah, Holderness.
Yeah, and I saw you there, and I was like, I remember you, and I'm so excited, and and then just as some more background, Imari and I are actually, but Imari is the chair, and I'm the co-chair for the Gordon
Research
conference for.
So it's called Environmental Science Water is the theme for our Gordon Research Conference. And then we have a very long and complicated title, but it's basically trying to identify chemicals in various waters. Doesn't matter whether it's glacial, freshwater, drinking water, like that's like the general theme for our seminar at least.
And we actually wanted to have the title, what's that funny taste?
Right, yeah, what's that funny taste? Like that's what we wanted the title to be, but apparently it's not,
academic enough.
Academic.
Yes. let's keep it as that, as like the joke. But yeah,
exactly. Like, what's in this? I don't know.
All right. So, and also one other thing I want to say is I'm very inspired and by your YouTube channel, and also reading your CV, inspired by your outreach, tremendous outreach and work that you've done for your community as an African American woman in STEM. And I, as a fellow African American PhD candidate, I'd like to advocate for you, and I promise to do that throughout my career as much as I can. So,
Aww.
yes. And getting into the first question of this very open interview is, what led you to graduate school and your research topic or focus? Like what?
Yeah. So for first, graduate school at the University of California, Berkeley, I was a part of a group called the Cal Nerds program. And I started that in that general organization sometime around my second year of college. I'm not actually sure how it originated, but I think they offered really great programs for tutoring, and it was geared towards minorities and underrepresented groups that are first generation in science and math and engineering. And the ultimate goal was just to continue to uplift us and open us up to ideas of not just like going straight to, industry or, government work, but also thinking about graduate school and just really expanding our minds to all the career trajectories that we could go into as we're getting these degrees, and provide a level of support. So they funded me to go to Tahiti. They funded me to go to almost any research conference I wanted to go to. And then when I became vice president of the National Black Society of Engineers, I was able to work with them to help fund over $20,000 to help other Black engineers like myself go to our national conference. So they've been, not only just like financially supportive throughout my career, like helping me pay for GRE and GRE prep courses every summer. But they provided an outlet for me just to, experience multiple ideas and career options. So the biggest step for them was to try and encourage us to go to get either a master's or a PhD. And that really opened my mind up to graduate school, because I met other Black PhD students, professors, just like other Indigenous people of color doing these great things, and especially in our lunch workshops that we had. So I felt like that was just like a no-brainer at that point, because it felt like this is the way to go. This is a good opportunity for me to continue learning about research and building my own body of work and contributing to that. And so I was like, yeah, Dr. Walker sounds great.
I love that. And is there any so you're the vice president for NSBE at Berkeley. Let's get more into that. So I really feel that outreach, especially at such a young age, I was not as involved in outreach when I was in undergrad, which is something that I regret. But how did that teach you skills necessary to that translated to your PhD work? I'm pretty sure you're really good at balancing your life and doing many things, engaging all of your interests. So can you speak a bit about that?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm great, but I do my best. Let's see. So I think that when I was vice president of NSBE, it was quite an experience of learning how to manage people, because you have an entire group just trying to make sure that we have great programming and we continue traditions from previous generations of NSBE boards. So making sure that we were having consistent meetings and having people that were like alumni or new people that have never heard of NSBE before come and speak to us about job opportunities in different industries, nonprofits, whatnot, even doing things that we had never considered before. So when I started that year, we instituted tours. That was the first year that we took a tour of Google. And then I think we did a couple other tours around Silicon Valley, but that was like a new idea that allowed a lot of us creativity and making connections with others. So I think a lot of people were able to continue working on making those relationships happen once they did that tour. So that was very helpful. And then it also helped us as far as like when we needed funding to go to the national conference, because Google was also another one of those funders for us. So being vice president was helpful in the fact that I learned how to interact with large corporations that had university geared sections for recruitment purposes. And so they want to give money, they want to help us get there and get good job opportunities, especially at their companies. But I think, of course, you got to have good organizational skills, because I was juggling a lot of stuff. But really good at like networking and then learning how to speak in front of people. So that was scary.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, you have to be thrown into the deep end to learn how to do that. And I think I will say, as African American individuals, we tend to be thrust into a lot of outreach activities. It's just like it's thrown at you. And I felt that, but I think that was very important, because it taught me how to see that even if the person that I'm speaking to doesn't see it that way, I see our connection and our working together as two colleagues. So I'm not going to be afraid. I'm just going to speak to you. And then we can agree to disagree, or we can agree to move forward and do something constructive. So I think that's one thing all the outreach that I've done taught me. Have you seen some of similar things in your
I think
career,
especially in the first time I gave like a introduction to like our general meeting, I was like shaking in the boots. Like it was probably like 20 people. Like, and they, I was a junior at the time, but I was, and so the majority of the people were freshmen, sophomores, but I was just like, who am I to like tell these people what our organization is about? Like imposter syndrome on like 100. And I think it didn't help that I didn't originally apply to be vice president, which is like a surprise. Like, I didn't really want that high of a leadership position. I think I applied for like the college, the collegiate chair to like talk to like middle schoolers and like help them get involved in our programs. And they were like, oh, this is your resume? Like, no, you're going to be vice president. And I was like, all right. And, took it by the bowl. But yeah, I think getting used to being, thrust into those positions of, you need to talk to people, you need to be able to communicate, what are the issues at hand, or like what's important. So I think that really helped me as far as like when I needed to create like a YouTube channel, because even though I'm talking to a camera, sometimes it doesn't feel like just that. It feels like I'm talking to an audience of people, and who am I?
You see the audience. What's helped me is sometimes seeing the audience, or like in my head, who am I speaking to?
Yeah, I agree.
So one thing I'd like to say is your channel art on your YouTube, it's really good.
Thank you.
How do you go about doing your channel art, or how did you go about designing your YouTube channel to like describe you and show to the public who you are?
Yeah, so I never really thought I was a graphic designer. Like that sounded like a very scary, unknown territory. But yeah, I ended up making that in kind of like Adobe Illustrator, but it's actually called Affinity Design. They have the same buttons, they do the same things. I don't think there's any actual differences, but I think my ability to kind of figure out what I wanted to do originated from when I started making posters for conferences.
Yes.
So I kind of applied like some of that technique and knowledge to like visualize what I was going for. And then I looked at other people's YouTube channels for their art and like try to like figure out what was my way of like doing it. And so I feel like everything is still going to be iterative. Like this may be the first run of the channel art, but I'm like, all right, this one works. Or maybe this is the third run of that one, but yeah, it's a process.
It's a process, definitely. I'm already seeing the differences in my videos. Like damn, like I need to, I need to be more eloquent, and it gets better as you iterative process.
Oh yeah, yesterday I actually started making a video on how to do a science communication channel, and I'm like over here speaking, and I'm like, ooh, I need to redo that again. Like,
yeah,
it's hard.
It's hard. Thank you for watching part 1 of my interview with Imari Walker. Stay tuned for part 2, and please like this episode and subscribe to the channel.